Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&As, so let's knock this out. Alright, first question. Hey Jason, I have been power cleaning for a while now after front squats. However, my wrist can't really handle it anymore, so last time I tried out the snatch grip high pull from the floor, everything felt great. Is this a viable substitute? It really depends on what you're doing, but here's what I'm going to say. If you're experiencing too much wrist pain from this, your wrists aren't recovering, spend some time working on your wrist mobility. Rotate in stuff like this. Meaning if your wrists need a break for a while and you want to do these snatch grip high pulls, work them in for 3 weeks. Work them in for a 3-week block and let yourself recover, and then ease your power cleans back in. There's nothing wrong with doing this. There are times to where joints or connective tissue can only handle so much workload from a given exercise, and you sometimes need time to adapt. And again, if the power clean is not a primary exercise for you, you're using it as a secondary exercise, and it sounds like it if you're doing it after front squats, because you're not an Olympic lifter. And I think front squats and power cleans are great lifts for overall strength development. I think they're lifts most athletes, if not all athletes, could benefit from. But there are times when you have to rotate these things out. And I would say this exercise can't 100% replace the power clean, but if it is a viable substitute for you, to have a good explosive full body exercise in your routine, maybe get a little bit more shoulder development, which is what high pulls are really good for, then by all means, like I said, sub it in for 3 weeks. Let your wrists recover, maybe work on stretching them, work on their mobility a little bit, and do it for 3 weeks, and then ease the power cleans back in and see how it feels. And that's the beauty of accessories. When you start to feel overuse, oftentimes accessories are the main things we can change. We don't necessarily need to change our primary exercises. Sometimes we need to rotate through our accessory work. And then we can do this without interfering with the progression on our main lifts. And it's the beauty of accessory work. It's optional, it's changeable, and it's something that in theory you could change every 3 weeks to overcome the law of adaptation while continuing your normal progress on your main exercises. So nothing wrong with doing this, and like I said, you'll probably get something out of it. Should be good to go. All right, next question. Hey coach, a lot of fighters seem to use almost only kettlebells in their training, including Joe Rogan, that pretty much does all of his training with kettlebells. What's your opinion on using kettlebells for building strength and athleticism? I would never recommend kettlebells as a primary exercise. I'm not saying they don't have their use for fighters and MMA guys and wrestlers and everything else, but I think that the people who are doing all kettlebell training are either so genetically gifted and talented when compared to the competition they're beating, or they're not competing at a high enough level and they're going to be performing substandard. Because the reality is big heavy barbells are going to be superior for building overall strength and power. And I'm not saying some kettlebell work isn't useful, particularly for combat sports. I think kettlebell training definitely has its merits. I'm not going to try to pretend that it doesn't. I think it does. But if people are doing kettlebells exclusively and they're not working on their back squats, their front squats, their power cleans, their push presses, things like that, if you are a contact sport athlete and you are not doing those as barbell exercises, you are short-changing your full potential. Now, someone's 90% potential or 85% potential might be good enough based on their genetics and their skills to get to an elite level, and that's what people need to remember. Some people are so gifted compared to their competition that they can get to the professional level while only being at 85% of their best, because 85% of someone's best who is very, very genetically talented for a sport might be twice as good as a lot of other people's 100% best. And you've got to remember that. But when it comes to just some common sense with training, if they're not getting strong on these other exercises with a barbell, they are absolutely shortchanging their speed and their power for any sort of contact or combat sport. They are flat shortchanging their full potential. Kettlebells, I think, serve a role for these guys, and they're good secondary, but they should not be used as your primary strength builder. You just can't move enough weight with them explosively enough to really actualize your full potential as an athlete in terms of your overall strength and power. You just can't do it. They're not as good of a tool. But again, they're great for some unilateral stuff, some balance stuff, all of that. They definitely have their place. All right, next question. Hey Jason, is it acceptable for a novice to train every other day without taking the weekends off, provided that all accessories are excluded from the program for better recovery and each workout are only 3 compound movements done? You know, people always ask stuff like this, and here's the thing you're going to find from every coach. From me, with my own novice program, I've told people this won't work. Yet you'll see programs like Mark Ripto's starting strength that doesn't have as many accessory movements in it, and he'll tell you the same thing. Training more than 3 days a week as a novice lifter is not productive. It's not productive. And you need that extra day sometimes of recovery so that you have 4 days off so that you can deal with the accumulation of fatigue. Because here's the thing. Novice programs are about how much weight you can stack on the bar with the same volume consistently over time. And the fact of the matter is, not giving yourself that extra day of recovery so that you can try to push a higher frequency than you're probably going to be able to benefit from at that point will actually shortchange your recovery enough that you might put 5 less pounds on the bar on some of the big movements every month. And if you put 5 less pounds on the bar, say on your squats or your deadlifts or your rows every month, because you aren't giving yourself that extra day of recovery and not giving yourself any benefits by the extra frequency at that point, you're going to gain slower. You're going to gain slower. You're not getting the best possible results. And that is the observation in novice trainees of dozens of coaches going back for decades. It's been my observation with full body for novices. That's been Ripto's observation. That's been the observation of a lot of people. Novice lifters do not benefit from training more than 3 days a week. And that extra day of recovery will allow you to increase fast. It doesn't matter if you cut the accessories out. You cut the accessories out, then you should be progressing even faster on the big lifts. Your workloads are still going to go up, but the accessories reduce how quickly you can increase weight on the bar. It's just they're there for overall volume in programs like mine. You'll probably get stronger faster on starting strength than you will on my novice program. A novice program there is to fill in all the weak links to make sure that you make it to an intermediate without having any weak links in your hypertrophy. It was intended more for physique-oriented guys than athletes, which is ironic given the nature of my channel, but there was a demand for it when I wrote the program, so that's why I did it. I wouldn't personally run that program for me personally, but for guys with certain goals, I would. However, you're going to get stronger faster on Ripto's, which is still only 3 days a week, with less exercises and less volume. You need that extra day, and there's no point in lifting more than 3 days a week as a novice. If anything, it's counterproductive. And trying to do so is the biggest reason people fail my program and fail Ripto's program and a lot of other ones. If these programs don't work for you and you're training every other day, that's why. Stop trying to do something that's been shown repeatedly to cause the programs to fail. It's not going to help you. Quit thinking that you're smarter than the coaches, because if you were smarter than the coaches, you wouldn't be needing someone else to write a program for you. You would already know everything that you need to write programs that work for tens of thousands of people. You aren't. Stop pretending that you are. All right, next question. Jason, what's your opinion on deadlifting 2 times a week, 1 heavy day and 1 light variation on the second, such as snatch grip deadlifts? Could an average person recover well from heavy squats 2 times a week if they're eating in a surplus? All right, brother, I'm going to say the average person, no, probably not. If you're a ranked novice, you would probably benefit from squatting 3 days a week anyways. Assuming you're an intermediate or higher, this volume of deadlifting and squatting, trying to deadlift twice a week, especially with a heavy day and a light day, a lot of people aren't going to recover from that, particularly if you're squatting heavy twice a week. Not everyone is going to be able to handle that. Most guys who are going to be able to handle that are probably going to be on drugs. But if you're an intermediate, a true intermediate, yes, you could make progress doing this, maybe up into the advanced. If you're more genetically gifted in terms of recovery and work capacity, you could get away with it. Guys on drugs can get away with it, but once you become advanced, If you're a totally drug-free lifter and you become advanced and you aren't genetically gifted, so you're average, I think that the deadlifting is going to become a problem for you at this point. I think you're going to struggle with recovery, and it's going to be problematic, and it's not going to work out as well as you think it will. So a lot of it's going to depend on, are you eating in a surplus? Are you gaining weight? Are you sleeping enough? And where is your level of advancement? That's the biggest points. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.